This Tuesday is the 11th anniversary of the 9/11 terror attacks. We were expecting a new unveiling at Ground Zero. One World Trade Center is scheduled to open in 2014. The reflecting pool has been visited by millions of people, but construction on the museum honoring the 9/11 victims has stopped, and that has angered many of their families. Every morning, the lines are long to see the memorial. In 1 year, 4.5 million people have seen these pools, etched with the names of the nearly 3,000 people killed on 9/11.
It's been very, very well done. However, the name does not tell the story, and that's what's missing right now.
Charles Wolfe, who lost his wife Catherine in the World Trade Center, says without a museum, the memorial is incomplete.
It is absolutely shameful because this memorial is not just for the families. This memorial is for the world.
Construction of the museum has stopped due to a financial dispute between the foundation that runs the memorial and museum and the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, the transportation agency that owns the whole site. The Port Authority is finishing a multi-billion-dollar office tower and train station here. But its vice chairman, Scott Reckler, says there are questions about the foundation's future finances.
Now the question is to make sure there's a budget in place long-term to deal with what's going to be a $60 million a year operating budget. What's the revenue to fund that?
The foundation raised $450 million to build the memorial and museum, and officials say they can successfully fundraise to operate both. Alice Greenwald has been planning the museum for 6 years. Otherwise, is the museum essentially ready?
Yes, remarkably so. I mean, we are, design is complete. We are building the exhibitions.
The museum is where visitors will see the faces behind the names, relics of the Twin Towers, and mementos of those who died in them. What do we have here? Museum curator Jan Ramirez has been organizing 40,000 artifacts.
In this case, it was worn into the building by a firefighter with Squad 18. You can see his 18, the yellow squad badge here that survives on the top.
David Halderman was one of 343 firefighters lost on 9/11.
He was last seen in the North Tower. They were doing last-minute checks to make sure that there were no civilians on the floor and the towers fell.
The museum will personalize history and won't avoid controversial subjects. It was a big issue about whether to use photographs of the hijackers.
There was never a question in our minds that if we're charged with telling the story of 9/11, that we would leave out the individuals who actually perpetrated the crime. It would be like having a Holocaust museum without Nazis. It's just, you can't do that.
And joining us now is Edie Lutnick, whose brother Gary worked at Cantor Fitzgerald and was on the 105th floor when Tower 1 collapsed. She is also executive director of the Cantor Fitzgerald Relief Fund and author of An Unbroken Bond.
Also with us is firefighter Lee Ielpi, who lost his son, also a firefighter in the South Tower. Lee is board president of the September 11th Families Association and co-founder of the 9/11 Tribute Center. Good morning to you both. Thanks for being here.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
Edie, let me start with you. And I should note, if people don't already know, your firm lost 658 people in the attacks. It's been 11 years. Are you surprised this museum hasn't been finished and opened?
Surprised, no. Disappointed, yes. I mean, the politics started, Lee and I were talking about this earlier, the politics started really on September 12th, and it hasn't stopped. It's really been the basis of what An Unbroken Bond is about. And so I'm not surprised that even after 10 years, it's continuing with the museum the same way that it did with the memorial.
You lost your brother Gary in 9/11.
I did.
The fact that there is no museum open here now, other than your tribute center, does that keep you from finding peace at Ground Zero?
I don't think that that's really what it is, because when you lose someone you loved, there's always going to be a hole, and no memorial or museum will ever fill that. But the reality is that the families fought very, very hard for a memorial that would tell a story, and we lost. We wanted the ages, we wanted the names of the companies, we wanted things that would tell you what happened here and that you could connect to. And the answer for the families was that you would get that information in a museum.
Right.
So by not having a museum, to me, I look at the 4.5 million visitors who've come to the memorial as a missed opportunity.
Right.
Because those are people who saw what appear to be a random listing of names
They haven't seen the
around
story.
2 pools, but they know nothing about the
Yeah.
people who passed away. They know nothing about what happened here, and they know nothing about what happened in the 10 years that followed.
Lee, you're responsible for opening the one essentially museum that is open down there, the 9/11 Tribute Center. What do you think needs to be done to get the museum going?
Two sides have to get together. It's quite obvious. I can tell you without any question that Mayor Bloomberg and the folks at City Hall and Joe Daniels from the Memorial Foundation and his folks, the 2 governors and the people from the Port Authority are working on this issue every day.
Right. But why can't they get together? I mean, fundamentally, what do you think this is about?
You know, I'm on the board, Memorial Foundation board, but I'm not privy to that end of it.
Mm-hmm.
There is a certain amount of politics, as Edie said. Is it egos? I don't think so. I think it's just that the 2 sides have to connect with certain issues, whether it's a control or not, but they are, without any question, they're working very diligently every day to try and resolve this. And it's easy to say it'll be done in the next few weeks. I don't think so.
Well, we're talking about a year here, at least.
Yes. The museum itself, if the issues were resolved today, it would most likely be another year and a half before the museum could be built. The sad issue with the museum not being built, and I think Edie was touching on it, is that these millions of people that have come to the site every day don't have any context. They don't exactly. So many people have been annoyed at the way some of the visitors are acting, but if you don't have any kind of signage, you can't expect the people to act differently till the museum is done.
Thank you to both of you for joining us. Lee Ielby, Edie Lutnick, thank you.